The double dip is a trap that gets a lot of traders, all right? It's this: a stock moves up, it pulls back very nicely, all right? So trader buys here, boom, stop there, moves up nicely, maybe they take some profits here, pulls back nicely, they add here, but they move this stop up too fast. Once they add, then the stock drops, stops them out, then goes. That's the double dip. That double dip right there is very common. Original plan here would have worked, right? So enter here one lot, stop, add one, take one off here, okay? Let the stock pull back on you. Green takes out red there, and there's your whale. So this is what I was explaining when I went over the first trade, that I'm reluctant to have you change your plan in the middle of the trade because the stock does something. So the stock gave Andres this bar, which forced him to change his original plan there. But the reason why I'm reluctant to have you change an original plan because of the stock doing something is that in the beginning, what it does is it teaches you to easily abandon your word, your promises, what you set out to do. In the beginning, it is best to stand your ground, to not let the stock put on a Halloween costume and say, boo, now I'm a green elephant. Boo, now I'm a topping tail bar. Ah, it tries to scare you, off your plan. It's you build trading character first by saying, this is what I plan to do, and I'm not changing it for anything. Now, later, as you develop more and more, you'll start to see things that consistently stop you out, that you begin to know beforehand. So, for instance, every time almost there's double tails against me, I do get stopped out. Later, you can start building that into your plan. Whenever there's double tails against me, I adjust. Now that becomes a permanent part. It's not something you decide in the middle of the trade. It's something that's now a permanent line item in your plan. But that's down the line after thousands upon thousands of trades that show you that. But before that, you're going to be prone to just being a flip-flopper on your plan for every little scary bar that happens. And that's what we want to try to eliminate. In this case, Andres, you do realize that this is a very different play without that stop, without that change plan, right? That's a very different play. There's something else I want to point out here. I'm constantly reminding my mentorship traders that there's a tendency for stocks to do what I call as a double dip, and you've got to be prepared for that. The double dip is a trap that gets a lot of traders, all right? It's this: a stock moves up, it pulls back very nicely, all right? So trader buys here, boom, stop there, moves up nicely, maybe they take some profits here, pulls back nicely, they add here, but they move this stop up too fast. Once they add, then the stock drops, stops them out, then goes. That's the double dip. That double dip right there is very common. And after the second one, if you get a double dip that then goes the move is statistically bigger than if it didn't double dip. So the moves that happen from one dip are nice, but the moves that happen from a double dip are bigger on average. You understand? So if you look carefully, this stock double dipped on us, right? So look at it. Drop, one, the second dip, and then the move from the second dip is the big one. Do you guys see that? You see the double dip there? Boom, boom, 1, 2. Okay. This is why I've always taught you when you get this dip, this must go almost all the way to the high again before you have a right to adjust that stop. So your original stop is here. You need this to move up off of the low. Then you can adjust the stop there, because now a break of that low is troublesome. But this scenario is not. All right? This scenario is. Now the break is troublesome. So it's almost like if it's just a little tiny hump, it's okay. But if it's deep, now if it breaks, that's not okay. But still, this is a tricky one. You know, this bar is very powerful. It's a tricky one. Very tricky open yesterday. Very tricky open yesterday. Yeah, you can actually say that. You can say that it dropped. It dropped deep enough to go, to adjust. Now, here's another thing. Here's another thing. Guys, there are two things that I encourage that you do to bring clarity back into the trade, because sometimes we can start focusing on the bars so intently that we lose sight of the forest. Like, we're looking at the individual trees, the individual bars so intensely that we forget that we've got to monitor the whole forest. So here, let me give you an example. One of those ways is to fill your gap in. All right. So when you fill the gap in, whenever you have a gap, when you fill it in and pretend like it didn't gap, this adds more clarity to the play for you. All right. Doesn't that look different? Does it bring something extra to your thing here? So now you kind of see that this pullback is normal if you connect that, right? The other thing I teach you to do is to fill in consecutive bars. And you can eliminate a single one. See how there's a single interrupt here? We can eliminate that. All right, so when it's a single one, you can remove it. So let's do this. Let's take the whole move down all the way to the low, and let's fill that in as if that's one bar. So in reality, when I look at this as one fluid move down, I'm still kind of in this gift zone. I don't want to get knocked out of the play anywhere in this zone. This zone is still applying pressure this way. Well, it should be, I guess I should be doing it downward, right? So it's still applying pressure downward to the right. So it's not going to be easy for this stock to penetrate through everything. So those two things can help bring clarity that is lost sometimes when we're looking at every individual bar. It makes us step back and get the full bigger picture. The bigger picture is this. This is the bigger picture, really. Top 50%, bottom 50%, declining 20. So, guys, there are some people who would actually consider this whale complete. And I'm okay with that because they would say, Oliver, initial rally, drop, okay. But theoretic, I mean, if we want to be really strict with the definition of a pullback, this is not a pullback. This is a pause. What did I always tell you can do with tails to gain clarity? Can someone help me? What I always tell you can do with tails if you want to gain clarity? Erase them. So let's erase the tails. Is that a pullback? No, that's a pause, right? There's a difference in a pullback and a pause, right? So I'm okay if a trader tells me, Oliver, I got whale complete, because it's still a very beautiful game. It's a huge game. So I'm okay with it. But technically speaking, this is one move and your pullback is here. Now, here is the double dip scenario right there. Now, this is the bar that stops you out, and that bar actually winds up being the low bar, and you get another one of your events, elephant bar. You got to be willing to re-enter this, because if not, look at what you miss. That's the perfect double dip scenario. No, Rhonda, I don't believe you. I don't believe you, Rhonda. Never. Of course you have. Of course you have. So it doesn't, if you've got a strong re-entry game, it doesn't even matter if you stop out. Some traders are better re-enterers and some people aren't. Some people psychologically have a hang-up. If they get knocked out of a play, they have a hard time going back in because they're haunted by the stop out. And so the stop out makes them shy when it comes to going back into it. Some traders have no issue with that. They would rather step out. They can step out and get back in 10 times in a row and not even feel it. So it does depend on, whichever method does depend on what kind of trader you are, right? But you can also use them both, meaning that if you can't not take the stop, if you can't allow this to drop on you because your risk parameters don't allow it, then you got to get out. But then you got to regard this as a brand new separate trade with now its own stop. Does this make sense? That re-entry is not part of the trade that stopped you out. This is a brand new trade with its own individual parameters. This is the next trade. It is not continuing the old trade. It's the next trade. All right. Johnny's asking, is it okay to buy on the second bar? It is okay, but why not this one? I mean, because knowing this concept now, you know that this is a potential, any new event right there now is a buy. You don't need anything extra. You're experiencing the double dip right now. And plus, the entry here is riskier than the entry here because both scenarios have the same stop. So a lot of people think that waiting is safer, but it's not. So you're going to buy there versus there, and the stop is the same for both. So which one is safer? Somebody was asking me, what about this buying above the high, the bottoming tail bar? Theoretically, that's okay, but because of the severity of that red, I would like to see what the next bar really can do to weaken that. All right. Now, guys, when you miss a main event like this, oh my God, I missed the elephant bar off the 200. Then what's your next? What's a way to get on it as a secondary play than the first RBI, right? So if you miss this, do you see your next play? Do you see it? Yeah, the RBI. Boom. That's your next play. Really. And look at the risk. If you were to be concerned with the pivot to the left, would you ever get a whale, Michael? Would you ever get a whale if you're going to be concerned about that? Would you ever capture one? Tell me, answer me. Would you ever get one if this stops you from at the former pivot? You wouldn't get one, right? You would never get one. So what's the key? What did I start off this conversation telling you the key is? It's the quality of the first move, right? What's another key? Does the pullback stay in the upper portion? If it does, if your entry is in the upper portion, you don't have to be worried about this. You understand? So here's an entry and here's an entry. These entries, and here's an entry. These entries are in the top 50%. Does this make sense? Ulija is asking, what about 20 MA resistance? All right, I'm glad, Ulija, I'm glad you're asking this question. Ulija, where are you from, by the way? Lithuania. Okay, cool. All right, no, yeah, 20 MA is a band, that's true, but a lot of people mistake this, 20 MA resistance. When the 20 is rising, is it resistance or support? It's support. When the 20 is declining, which one is it? Right. So what's the 20 doing here? It doesn't have resistance qualities when it's rising. It has resistance qualities when it's declining. So when you dip below the 20, the overhead 20 is not resistance if it's rising. In fact, it's just a rubber band. Boing, right? Okay. All right. So I'm very glad you asked that question, Olija, because that allowed me to clear up a lot of what is likely to be a lot of confusion with that. All right. So guys, some of your best buys are when the stock breaks a rising 20. I'm going to repeat that. Some of you should write that down. Some of your best buys are when the stock breaks a rising 20. Think of a slingshot. Think of the slingshot from here, guys. Look at the slingshot from here. That's pull the slingshot back and boom. But think about this. Pull the slingshot back like here and you're pulling it back more, right? All right, so guys, there are certain advanced knowledge, information, realizations about market behavior that can take a trader to a different level. This is one of those sort of advanced things that I want you to be aware of.